Welcome to the third presentation in our behavior series. This webinar is part of a collaboration of webinars with the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Special Education Services, Disability Rights South Carolina, Family Connection of South Carolina, ABLE South Carolina, and the Family Resource Center for Disabilities and Special Needs. The information in this webinar is meant for South Carolina residents. My name is Sally Baker, and I am the Director of Education at Family Connection of South Carolina. The title of this presentation is Behavior Concerns. What do I do? Parent and Student Advocacy. Visual description. There is a diverse array of decorative pictures of children with varying ages, ethnicities, and disabilities throughout the presentation. Behaviors happen everywhere. They happen at the grocery store, in a store, at school, and at home. In this session, we'll be discussing challenging behaviors your child may engage in, which could result in your student not being able to have success at school. There may be behaviors that you, as the parent or caregiver, observe at home that make you concerned. These could be things like an inability to sit down and be still for an age-appropriate amount of time, defiant behaviors like refusing to do something that has been asked of them, like chores, or they could be bigger behaviors like throwing items when they are angry. As a parent or caregiver, it can be important and helpful to communicate to your child's school the types of behaviors that you are seeing at home, if you feel they are having an impact on your child's ability to learn. Your child's teacher may have communicated with you his or her concern about various behaviors happening at school. So taking notice of if you are seeing same or similar behaviors at home can be important for the school to know. Or maybe you have noticed that your child is getting good reports home from school about his or her behavior, but when you notice that at the end of the day, when your child is trying to do homework, that they are no longer able to regulate their emotions or sit long enough to focus on their work. All of these things can be reason to have a conversation with your child's teacher. There are times as a parent or caregiver, you may receive a call from your child's school to come pick him or her up because of their behavior. When the school requests that your student is consistently picked up early, it's important to keep a record of these requests. This type of record keeping can be a form of data collection, which could be used to help in any future conversations about possible supports your student might need to help him or her be able to successfully participate in a full day of school. Similarly to a student being sent home due to their negative behaviors, it's equally important to pay attention to if your student is being pulled out of class frequently due to these negative behaviors. This removal from the classroom can also result in a disruption of their IEP services being provided. In addition to students missing class time in all its various forms, due to his or her behavior, there may be other responses to behavior to remain aware of. For example, a student may experience a form of seclusion in which, as a result of a specific behavior, a student is removed from their typical environment and placed in a space in which they are confined to a room and prevented from leaving. Or maybe a student's behavior has now warranted the school resource officer to get involved in the situation at hand, maybe even on more than one occasion. These types of situations, in addition to the others listed on the screen, may also be patterns you want to watch for to decide if you should or won't to request a meeting with the IEP team to discuss ways to support your student's behavior. When there are concerns about your child, it can be confusing or sometimes even overwhelming to think about where to start and who to reach out to for help. It's always a good idea to start with your child's teacher. If your child has multiple teachers, start with the teacher he or she interacts with the most. Reach out to that person and let them know you'd like to have a conversation about your concerns regarding your child's behavior, especially when there have been multiple behavior referrals or those consistent calls home to pick up your student from school. It's important to have this conversation as soon as possible so that a plan on how to best support your student can begin to be devised. If the same or similar behaviors continue even after the conversation with your child's teacher, and some interventions have been tried, next you may want to reach out to the building level administration, the school principal or assistant principal, and request a meeting with him or her. Let this person know what has already been tried to resolve the behavior concerns and ask what steps are available to try to ensure your student is able to be successful and remain at school for a full day. If after you've done these things, you still have concerns because things have not changed, you could reach out to the district special education director. During this conversation, you will want to also be sure to let him or her know what steps you have taken already and what interventions have or have not been tried to help remedy the concern. Throughout this process of reaching out to various members of the educational team, it is important to document your efforts and keep your own records of each time you reach out to someone, including those times that you didn't immediately get in touch with someone and/or had to leave a message. There are times that you try multiple informal options, such as meeting with the classroom teacher individually or having those conversations with the principal like we just discussed, and yet the same similar behaviors continue. If this is your situation, or maybe you have had multiple of these conversations, but you feel there haven't been any positive results yet, it could be time to request a special review IEP meeting. Behavior is something that can be addressed through the IEP process. A special review IEP meeting would allow the opportunity to discuss the behaviors and your concerns as the parent with the whole team rather than with just the classroom teacher. You may even want to request that additional people be included in this meeting. For example, should the school counselor be included in this conversation and/or the principal as well? You may also want to consider if there are other accommodations that could be included in your student's IEP or discussing whether the team feels as though the current accommodations in place are still effective for your student. If you feel your child is at a point in his or her life where he or she could provide insight into what helps or doesn't help have a successful day, you may also want to consider having him or her be a part of this meeting, even if it is only long enough for him or her to provide their input. As a parent, you can prepare for this meeting by organizing any documentation you may have, which supports your concerns about behavior impacting your child's education. This could be copies of the behavior referrals your child has received, a log of the days and times when you have been contacted to pick your child up from school due to behavior, or anecdotal notes of how behaviors at home after school are impacting your child's quality of life. During the meeting, be sure to stay focused on the main concern of discussing what types of supports might be most appropriate for your student in the school environment. You may want to discuss with the team whether there needs to be more than IEP accommodations. Maybe it's time to consider a type of behavior plan. If all the supports and accommodations that were discussed and implemented during your meeting were effectively implemented and your student is still engaging in challenging behaviors without much change and/or the behaviors are disrupting the learning of others, you may want to ask the team if it would be beneficial to conduct a functional behavioral assessment, or FBA. A functional behavioral assessment is a process through which information about a problem behavior is collected via direct observation, interviews, and rating scales to determine its function. The results of an FBA are used to determine why a problem behavior is occurring, and then the information gathered is used to develop a behavior intervention plan. Keep in mind that this process might take time in order to be a thorough assessment. This process is not one that is meant to change behaviors overnight. A behavior intervention plan, or a BIP, is a formal written document which outlines the interventions that will be used to reduce, replace, or reinforce desired behaviors. This document provides staff with the most up-to-date behavioral interventions in place for a student. These documents provide the educational team with a protocol or plan for how to consistently address any challenging behaviors your child engages in. You and your child's team can then work collaboratively to reduce challenging behaviors and teach positive replacement behaviors. Collecting data on your child's behavior is one very important way to see if there are any patterns. The patterns could be related to the type of behavior that is shown. For example, is your child consistently running away from things out of the classroom? Is he or she consistently out of their seat more than is typical for their age? Does your child have emotional outbursts or meltdowns frequently? There could also be a pattern as to when these behaviors occur. Maybe your child seems to get the majority of their behavior referrals during the transition periods throughout the day, like class change or subject matter changes during the day, or perhaps your student has the emotional outburst only in the afternoon each day around the same time. Additionally, there could be a pattern of behavior in the same setting. For example, maybe the challenging behavior is exhibited only in math class each day, or maybe it's only in the cafeteria. All of this information is helpful as the team works to determine what the function of the behavior is for your child. As a parent or caregiver, you can also help to collect data. Like we mentioned earlier, if you are getting called to consistently come pick your student up, keeping a record of those phone calls and/or messages and the dates and times could be helpful. Maybe you notice your child's challenging behaviors mostly when working on homework after school. Keeping a record of what you're seeing and what is taking place when the behavior happened are all important pieces of information for your child's team to hear and consider. Your record keeping doesn't have to be anything necessarily formal, but simply keeping a written log, whether it's in the notes section of your phone or handwritten on a piece of paper. It's documentation to support the concerns you are discussing with the team. Once all the data needed is collected and the behavior plan is created and implemented, it's important to keep in mind that this document should be one that is able to be easily adapted as a student's behavioral support needs change over time. With the purpose of a BIP being to reduce the undesired behavior and reinforce the desired behavior, it makes sense that a BIP would need to be edited over time. As the undesired behaviors lessen, the intensity and/or frequency of the supports that have been put in place may need to be reduced, or there may need to be new supports and strategies put into place. As a parent, it is important to continue to pay attention to any changes you are noticing in your child's behavior performance and bring that information back to your team. Since this document is one that is tailored to your students' needs, it is very important to ensure that there is a plan for communication. During the meeting when the BIP is created, be sure you ask the team how you should expect to receive communication about the effectiveness of the BIP and the progress your student is making. Remember that it is important for you to let the team know too what type of communication works best for you. For example, if you are someone who doesn't frequently check your email and you are okay with a teacher texting you, you may want to offer that as a means of communication for the team. Make sure you know if you should be expecting this communication daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, etc. The amount of time between communications can vary depending on the needs and preferences of you and the team. However, there may be times that a challenging behavior was displayed between those communication intervals and the team needs to reach out to you sooner. Make sure you have provided them with the best way to reach you in those instances. Additionally, consider how you might convey information to the school team in the event that something has happened at home before going to school that could potentially be a trigger for some of those challenging behaviors during the day. Is this information you want to provide to the teacher face-to-face in the drop-off line in the morning? But what if your child is a bus rider and you don't see the teacher first thing in the morning? How would you then ensure he or she is made aware of the situation? Also, keep in mind whether or not you want your child to overhear the potentially negative communication if there has been a trigger at home or school. So does the communication need to remain electronic where your child doesn't hear it? Or maybe it will require a phone call to the administration who can relay it to the teacher. Again, this can look very different from child to child and even different over time depending on what is best for the child and the team of adults supporting him or her. At the end of the meeting in which your child's behavior plan has been created, be sure to discuss with the team how frequently everyone should reconvene to review the effectiveness of the plan. It can be helpful to put a next meeting date on the calendar prior to everyone leaving. Much like goals on the IEP, there should be data being collected to determine the effectiveness of the behavior plan. It is good to ask the team how that data is going to be collected, even asking who will be responsible for collecting and who will be monitoring that data. The full IEP team may not need to meet to review the data. However, remember that if there are changes that need to be made as a result of reviewing the data, then the whole IEP team will need to meet to make those changes. Remember also, if your child has been removed from school for a period of time, or their school day schedule has been reduced, it's also appropriate to discuss during this meeting what the plan will be for transitioning your student back into the school environment on a full-time basis. This slide provides some resources that can be found on the internet. This slide provides website information for Family Connection of South Carolina, our state's current parent training and information center. Its website is https://www.familconnection/. Disability Rights South Carolina. Its website is https://www.disabilityrightss Center for Parent Information and Resources, the Parent Center Hub. Its website is https://www.parentcenterhub.com. Family Resource Center for Disabilities and Special Needs. Its website is https://frcsn.org. South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Special Education's Parent Resources website can be found at services.resources. Understood.org is an online resource providing information on a wide variety of topics for those who learn and think differently. Its website can be found at https://www.understood.org. I thank you for your time, and I hope you found this webinar helpful.